Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Community Hour webcast. We're going to wait for a few more to trickle in here. We'll get started shortly. Great to see everybody joining. Thanks for joining us today for the Community Hour. We're going to have a few more trickle in here. We'll get started in about a minute. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining the Converged User Group Community Hour. My name is Ann Sari. I'm on the Converged team. We're excited to have everybody here today. We have a great agenda waiting for you. In case you're not familiar with the Converged User Group, and this might be your first event, our mission is really to bring together members who are interested using, exploring Dell converged and hyper-converged infrastructure. So we're here to provide a network for you to share ideas, best practices with one another. And we do that through a variety of events and programming. We have great resources on our website. We host various events. When we do get back to in-person events, you'll find us at various industry conferences. And we also host this monthly community hour. Community hours are on a variety of different topics, and we have a great agenda, as I mentioned, for everyone here today. Before we get started, a couple quick notes. We would love for you to participate in the conversation. So please share any questions through the Q&A or through the chat, and our speakers will help answer those for you. Share any thoughts and feedback. We want this to be interactive. So we look forward to your participation. And also be on the lookout for some polls that we're going to conduct. So we'll have some polls today and also a survey link. And as always, we do have a great prize. So make sure you complete that survey and share your feedback with us. It does really help us plan our future events. So we love to hear your feedback on today's programming and anything else we can offer moving forward. So with that, I will pass it over to David Giesica, who will help kick us off.
Fantastic, and thanks, Ann. Panelists, can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me, please? How do I sound? I sound okay, 2 thumbs up even. Look at that, fantastic. Again, thank you, Ann, and thanks everybody for joining us for another Converged Community Hour. Fantastic episode for you today. We've got Joe Blackburn, System Architect at 24/7 AI. He's gonna share his PowerFlex IT transformation story with us, and my special co-host, Suzanne Pickett, Director of Product Acceleration, Infrastructure Platform Enhancement from Dell Technologies, and to my heart, more importantly, Converged User Group board member, Suzanne. Thank you very much. Before we kick off, folks, the chat window, please use it if you've got questions. Great conversations. We've got the polls that we'll have, and we can dive right in. Looks like some folks are on mute, so speakers, you can just be aware of that. I'll kick it off with you, Joe. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on here. We love to hear customer members share their stories. So thanks for joining us, and tell us a little bit about 24/7 AI and what you do there, and set the table for us.
Well, David, it's great to be here. So a little bit about 24/7. We are a leader in contact center outsourcing and AI-powered digital and voice automation. So 24/7 was founded about 20 years ago, and I've been here about 9 years. We interact with millions of people per year and answer some of the most dialed phone numbers in the world. Some of our clients include AT&T, Walmart, Farmers Insurance, and of course, many main product portfolios include live agents, so call center type agents, digital agents, and also interactive voice recognition. So that's the main thing about our company. Again, I've been here for about 9 years, and before before, 1 second, I have a little girl here that wants to say hi.
That's okay. Hi there. How are you
Say
doing?
hi. All right, can you go back to mom?
Hey,
You
Joe's
all
daughter.
Good.
All right.
If anyone had any doubts, this was live.
Good to see you. No, that's fantastic. Are your kids? School here. My kids are out of school next Wednesday. That's the last day in Massachusetts for me. Where is it on the West Coast for you guys?
We are out of school. My daughter goes to daycare. My son is in camp doing Minecraft camp.
That's
So
right.
There'll be
Okay.
lots of yelling in the other room. So you hear that,
And maybe he's stealing some of your bandwidth too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just got your internet connection is unstable alert. So I don't know.
All right. Well, we'll get this squared away. Fantastic.
So
9 years at 24/7 AI.
24/7, and I was part of an acquisition from Microsoft. From Microsoft, 1 second. From Microsoft Speech Group, and then also that was acquired from a company called Tell Me Network. So altogether, I've been here for I think 17 years.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It's been a long time.
Fantastic. Well, we've got some great questions for you coming up. And Suzanne, before I turn it over to you, audience, we do want to make this interactive, and we've generated some polling questions for you. And when you're ready, if we could start with that first polling question, we'd love to know what CI and HCI products folks are using. So we'll take a few seconds to get that squared away. And while they are answering, Suzanne, thank you for joining us. You've got fantastic experience. You've been one of our biggest PowerFlex advocates over the past several years. Back when we were in person, and you were at a different company, you were doing some incredible stuff with PowerFlex. So as we get through these polling, which I have to clear here, why don't you tell us a little bit about your quick experience with PowerFlex, and then I'll hand it over to you for further questioning.
Yeah, and Joe, I think my husband's probably playing Minecraft at the same camp. So if you hear yelling on my side, that might be what's happening. So thanks, David. Thanks for welcoming me. Joe, glad to hear and glad to get to know you better. I know we've had a couple quick conversations. And just to kind of let everyone know, Dell IT itself, the internal IT shop, the enterprise IT shop that supports all of Dell, is pretty massive. Like our scale is pretty big. And really the focus is on modernizing our infrastructure, just like it is with most other companies, and then automating on top of that modern infrastructure. So a lot of what we're doing and delivering is around kind of self-service and enabling whether people want a VM or a container or a function as a service, enabling that. And all of that's really running on top of our kind of software-defined data center technologies like VxRail and PowerFlex. So that's what we're building. We're really excited about it. I don't want to take away from Joe today. I can talk about that all day long. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. It's a great way for us to improve how people do business with us as an IT shop, because they can just go put things in a cart when they want it versus submitting a service desk request, for example. So David, do you want to talk about those poll results?
Yeah, if everyone can see it, looks like we've got good representation. Certainly VxRail, about a third of the respondents are on PowerFlex, or for those long in the tooth, VxRack Flex. Fantastic. Block Series 1000 and a couple others. So great. It looks like, as we would expect, a good representation across the CI and HCI for the user group. So fantastic. Thanks, folks, for chiming in on that. With that, let's get started on talking PowerFlex. So, Joe, how did you guys decide on PowerFlex? How did you start that for your IT transformation? What can you share with members who might be considering PowerFlex or are using it, some lessons learned, some best practices? I'll just open the fire hose.
Sure. So I guess we can start our PowerFlex story kind of starts with our virtualization story. In 2012,
Looks like
Uh-oh.
someone's streaming on. Yeah, we lost Joe for a little bit.
I think
All right.
Joe froze.
Well, that's okay. While we're waiting to get Joe back, Suzanne, how long have you had experience
fast
with
you can deploy
PowerFlex?
VMs.
Oh, sorry, Joe.
Yep.
You may not know it, but you've been frozen for the last 30, 40 seconds or so. So can you go back and repeat what you've said?
Sure. It looks like, yeah, my internet connection keeps on saying unstable. So perfect timing.
Of course.
Well, we'll work through it. Summertime.
Exactly. So we 24/7 purchased two companies around 2012. One of them was Voxify, and they virtualized everything using ESXi. The other company was the speech group at Microsoft, and that was previously Tell Me Networks. And it was almost all bare metal because the speech group Microsoft was doing interactive voice recognition. And basically, as you add more calls, you would add more bare metal machines. So it was a very scalable unit. But as we added virtualization to the data center, it became a lot easier to deploy new things and a lot quicker, right? It's like, hey, I need a new VM, and the group's able to get you a new VM, near immediately, and that really took off, especially in our development data centers as well. And I'd say our main issue though is we use local storage, and local storage was extremely painful for patching. Is either we had to power those VMs down or we had to move them, and that it just doesn't scale very well. So then we started about the same time. We had a proof of concept going for using OpenStack and using Ceph as the backend. And after we start to look very seriously using Ceph and went to training, and then we started looking for some different options, and we went to the Dell site and saw Scale.io because we're looking for just, hey, any sort of software-based storage, because that seems to be the way the future is going. And I downloaded Scale.io, watched a video or two, and deployed a small cluster on my desktop in half an hour. And that really sold us how easy it was to set up. And some of the other advantages were using bare metal SDCs for storage, and also using it for our VMs and the native drivers inside of ESXi.
Fantastic. So how long have you guys been using PowerFlex?
I think a little bit over 3.5 years. We started on version 2.0.
Okay.
Wow.
Back in Scale.io days.
Hey, when you and I met, Joe, you had mentioned a couple great kind of outcomes of moving towards software defined. I mean, the ease of use, the supportability. But one thing that really stood out to me was you were telling me a story around performance, and I think it was a Cassandra database.
Right.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that one?
Sure. We run many different workloads, and one of our workloads that we run is Cassandra. And probably back in November timeframe, in the morning, I come into the office or get online, and I check out the Scale.io GUI performance, and I looked at it and it's like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? We're using 3 times the amount of bandwidth we normally use. The throughput was just through the roof. And I started digging in through looking at what SDCs are going on, and hey, it's only like 8 SDCs, and looked at those hypervisors, and we have the VMs on there. This Cassandra host had all basically 10x their throughput, and that for the data center, they tripled the data center usage. And there were no complaints. Everybody was happy. Nobody had noticed anything going on as far as performance. So it was just a great experience as far as how well Scale.io performed with that. And then we're able to talk to the database team, and they had done a maintenance, and the maintenance, changed some queries, and the queries, instead of, needing to read just, a little bit, we're reading like 2 to 3, megabytes per query. And it was just huge.
Yeah.
And,
I'm pretty sure everyone on this call has a story about a database gone wild, and in the results from that, the incident, the problem, the troubleshooting, and all of that. So it's really great to hear that the environment that you put in and built just automatically scaled to that and
Yep.
handled that really high load. So kind of a lesson learned there about that dynamic ability to scale, which was really great. That reminded me, you had mentioned, I think, another story where you had been just running out of capacity, and in running to keep up and match. And since I manage our internal capacity teams for Dell, this story kind of resonated with me as well. It's like, you're constantly having to manage that day to day. And then I think you told me a story about just something as simple as compression, and how that benefited you for like a couple years now, or will be benefiting you.
Right.
You want to run us through that one too? Because I thought that was a pretty cool example.
So, we were running, Scale.io 2.0013, I think, and we were getting really close to our capacity limits, and we'd also been adding drives to existing SDSs, and it was very tight on licensing, and our data stores were all getting very tight. And then we said, hey, the new version, 3.0 was coming out with the NV DIMMs and compression. So we're like, hey, let's get some of these in, and we deployed about many terabytes, or almost 1,000 terabytes of data center, petabyte of data center, and a little bit more than that actually. And all of a sudden, once we added the compression and migrated VMs to it, our capacity issues had really gone away. Like, it went from being maxed out to being, under 60%. So it's just a great way to keep going, and we're seeing amazing compression depending on our workloads and what the environment is. So things like staging. We have lots of staging hosts that use our VxFlex, and their compression ratios are 2.7 to 1 sometimes on those data stores. It seems we get a little less than that on other production stuff, but it had really helped out.
Yeah, that's a great story. Hey, David, we've been talking a little bit about some of the workloads running on PowerFlex. Did you have a poll that you wanted to put up for everyone who's attending?
That was fantastic. Very well done. Thank you, Suzanne.
I'll expect the check in the mail on that.
Yeah, great stories, great shares. And folks, we do have another poll. We have a poll on workloads. We'd love to hear from the folks who are using PowerFlex or are considering PowerFlex. What type of workloads would you put there? So here we got, let's see, we've got the poll going, so that's fantastic. Joe, what else, what other workloads, are you doing everything on PowerFlex, only certain things? How are you splitting it up?
We do most things on PowerFlex.
Okay.
There are a couple things that we still have on bare metal, but a lot of those things will likely possibly get moved to PowerFlex in the future. But if somebody says, do you have this database? We have that database. Some developer has decided that is the database that they need. So it's MariaDB, MS SQL, MySQL, Cassandra. We will have it. Somebody will have it in our environment. So it seems to not. We don't need to care very much about it, which is nice, right? Like, it's I'm not thinking that, oh, because we have this very specific workload that we need a very specific type of storage, because I already know that Scale is able to handle it. Or PowerFlex is able to handle it.
Yeah, well, it's when you're long in the tooth. Sometimes I still say VCE, but I'm old school.
I expect you to never stop saying VCE, David.
Well, it's kind of, that's I bleed VCE, I guess.
And for us within Dell Digital, our internal IT, our enterprise IT, we definitely have a mix of vSAN and Flex, or software-defined storage solutions as they've come up through Scale.io and Flex and now PowerFlex. And really our roadmap is, it might be both going forward. But the consideration is, if we had one standard to rule them all, and we needed that scalability and that performance and that resiliency out of it, really our roadmap is to start moving a lot of our modern data center activities toward PowerFlex. So we're doing that internally as well. We are all in on that. We are building a lot of our framework for automation and orchestration on top of that particular technology. So that's kind of how we're doing it and where we want to go. And that doesn't mean vSAN doesn't have a play, but for sure, I mean, vSAN's a great technology as well. But in this particular case, we've been talking about pretty extreme workloads, like high velocity databases, and them running without any concern or cost for the underlying hardware underneath from a performance standpoint. And trust me, your DBA teams, your developer teams are gonna absolutely be overjoyed on that. So that's kind of a hidden peek into what we're doing as well.
Well, and Suzanne, doesn't that kind of circle back to a conversation that we've been having with the user group for years now? It's an and conversation. It's not necessarily CI or HCI, and in this instance, it's neither nor. It's and. It's kind of like optimizing the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, really what it comes down to is every business is going to be different. Every requirement is going to be different. And then just figuring out what works best. And so, we take a more modular approach today with the hyper-converged strategy. We like to scale when and where we need it. We are focusing, again, our roadmap on PowerFlex technologies. We're building a lot of our automation capabilities around that. We still have a very sizable vSAN environment. Our environments, I mean, again, the scale is massive, right? It's fun to work with every day at that kind of hyperscale. And so we do run a lot of our management nodes, our virtualized management nodes on vSAN today. And we may continue to do that just from a simplicity standpoint. But for sure, where we're really heading in terms of these heavier workloads, and if we think 5 years ago, the concept of putting a big database on software-defined storage, there's no one in the world that would have agreed to that from a database or a developer perspective. And now that conversation is moot, right? We don't even really need to have that conversation anymore because the requirements are being met, the performance is there, resiliency and the flexibility is there. And by the way, we can automate the majority of those mundane tasks using those native tools that help us deliver toward those customers. So, it's just a win-win. We can do things better, faster, and cheaper. And our customers, internal customers, if you will, can consume those services faster.
Yeah, that's really fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of
like I
things
said, I can talk about that all day long, but this is about Joe today. So right. Sorry, Joe.
Well, I guess.
Well, go ahead, Joe.
Back to the performance. That's one of the things that we started when we were initially doing testing, where we had a very small cluster with only about 10 nodes that we just scraped the hardware together to run some tests to see how fast this could be. And we ended up running tests, and it's like, hey, this is 10 machines and it's doing 700,000 IOPS. And then we would add another VM to add more IOPS to it, and it would do more IOPS. And every single time we added another VM to run more tests, it would just get more IOPS out of it. and I was tired of adding more VMs. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we had more than one VM per hypervisor, and it was it just cranked along. It didn't matter how much we threw at it; it would always just do more.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, and that's probably because of that feature. That's why your DBA snuck that Cassandra thing past you. I would imagine it. Prior to, if you think back, prior to going PowerFlex, what would have happened if you didn't have PowerFlex running when they did that?
Oh, that'd been
what
terrible.
would have been the outcome?
It most likely some sort of outage,
Yeah.
because it's shared storage across lots of other products, and it would have not been good at all. Been a very long night.
Yeah. And
I think we've all been there,
speaking,
so we know.
Yeah, it's pretty telling and pretty impressive. We do have another poll, and I was trying to grab Suzanne's segue here. The SDS feature set, I think, is poll 3. So, folks, when you're looking at software-defined storage features, what are your top 4 most important features that you're looking for? A pretty long list here, so we'll leave that up for a little while. We'll continue the conversation while folks can reply to that. Joe, speaking of outage, I was listening to Virtually Speaking podcast, and they like to talk about fire, flood, and blood, every now and then. So if you've got one of those stories, we'd love to hear that. But also, how many data centers are you running? Where are they situated? And tell us a little bit more about the environment and how easy or challenging is it to manage?
Sure. We have three main data centers. One's a development data center, and they are mainly in an active type scenario. So if there is a problem in a data center, we can route traffic out of that data center, and keep all of our customers happy. So as far as failures, VX Flex failures, we've had a few. We did have a data center power outage that impacted multiple racks, and it took out half of 2 racks of VX Flex. So that obviously impacted performance, or impacted everything, right? So
taking power away from hardware impacts performance.
Exactly. It was, it's always, when you call support and you say, I have a DU event going on, and they're like, okay, we'll get everybody. But so that happened, and we recovered. We've had some smaller outages. We actually had one where there was a issue with SDCs only showing one IP address in the GUI when they were actually connected to both. And one of the fixes for it was to switch the MDM ownership. So we would switch the MDM ownership, and you'd see both IP addresses come back. And I'd done that quite a few times. And one time I switched the MDM ownership, and all of a sudden we had a DU. And that DU was caused because sometimes, very infrequently, a drive will not come back as alive during a MDM switchover. And even extremely more infrequently, you'll have 2 drives not come back. So the good news is it was a very small data store on a staging environment, and I think I impacted 18 VMs. So some of these things could be much worse, but it wasn't that bad.
Was that just a bug that you worked with the team, Joe, to
there's a bug on the team, and there is now a no. It was a known issue in 3001. I think it is fixed in 3.5.
So that's great that you found a bug. Mm-hmm. Great. But also, I think it's notable too that when you do run into those kind of situations, that we can get with the support teams and fix the code if needed for that particular trigger event
Yep.
to eliminate that from happening again, which is really what we're all looking for when we're going through our root cause analysis, right? Is like, how do we prevent that from happening again? And I think you mentioned that in your data center power outage, which was massive, and no one wishes that on anyone. Because you're running active, you were able to pretty much seamlessly just run that workload in your alternate data center.
Exactly.
Did I remember that correctly?
That's true. Like
Yeah.
we were able to move traffic.
Yeah.
It did take a little bit longer than we wanted it to, but we were able to move traffic.
So you just kind of load balanced it all over into the one data center run until you could get your power situation back up and running for everything that was impacted there. I'm sure that was a long day for you as well.
Yeah, it was very long. I think it was like a Thursday night, and it went on until, I think it happened like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it ended like at 2 in the morning for me.
But it did end, so that's the good news. One thing too that we were talking about is, how we're managing and monitoring, how we're observing these environments. What has your team done around kind of that visibility and the observability for your environment?
So we have an SRE team that monitors all of our environment 24/7. It's like just like the name, right? And I
see what you did there, by the way.
And so a lot of our alerting is just normal SMMP, and they would get alerts for a lot of our normal stuff. For monitoring, we also, I use the GUI a little bit, but we also deployed that there's a Grafana VM that somebody at Dell set up with all the dashboards to make it really easy. So we've been using that. We also use Grafana for other things. So we're likely going to be moving those dashboards to our other main Grafana setup soon. But as a quick, very quick way to deploy some good monitoring for scale in VxFlex, I'd use those Grafana dashboards immediately.
Awesome. And were you able to automate a lot of that too, or maintain that?
So unfortunately not. We don't have a lot of automation on the VxFlex side of things yet. We have lots of small little scripts to add data stores to SDCs, but nothing that is fully automatic yet. And that's why I think it's one of the things we want to work on.
Yeah, for sure. And and happy also just to offline talk a little bit more about that, and if there's anything we can share. Now, who's that?
That's the cat. That's Dexter.
Hey, Dexter.
Nice.
I've locked my office doors against my 2 dogs just so they don't come barging in. But
I don't know how he got in here. The door is locked. He hasn't been here this whole time.
That's what you need to say. I don't even have a cat.
This is not my cat.
When because we all are remote, and we've all just been through the year that we've had, working from home, and our families, kids, pets, our garbage pickup just went by and it made a lot of noise. I think it just speaks to, hey, this is us now. This is what we're doing and what we're dealing with. So Minecraft and all of that aside, cats coming in. Personally, I think it's great because we all get to know each other just that much better, and we're not just a talking head. For me, I now know that you have kids in camp and a cat, and it just makes you like you more, Joe. So with that, I don't know. Did you have another poll, David, that you wanted to do?
I have another poll. Yep.
Of course.
This kind of lends into the automation. We've got an integration and interoperability poll we'd love to pick people's brains on. We haven't been able to circle back on the polls yet, so maybe we could do that towards the end here. But while this poll is open, Joe, you're mentioning how you manage Flex, the GUI, and are you guys trying to write any API calls or anything, or where are you sitting with that?
We have not. We would probably like to, especially for deployment of new Flex nodes, and also deployment of data stores, right? Like getting data stores out to all of our SDCs that we want them on. That would be useful for us.
Yeah, cool. Suzanne, you guys, your team before you were at Dell was doing some neat stuff along those lines, and now you're bringing that to Dell Digital as well. Is there anything you want to share there, or is that too secret sauce?
Actually, it's much smarter people than me that are building some of what we're calling. It's kind of what our teams are calling zero touch engineering, as well as zero touch provisioning, and really taking so when we bring in new nodes or clusters, we're doing them at rack scale or we're doing them at data center scale. So multiple of racks of nodes at a time. And to Joe's earlier point, there just comes a time when you cannot sustain the traditional ways of unboxing something, racking it, cabling it, powering it, and then configuring it one at a time, or even in sets or groups of clusters. You really have to focus on what and where you can start automating that and get some optimization, get some time back, and then really just deliver this stuff faster. Now, I realize for everyone, it's not about how fast you can do something or how big you can do it. But really what that means is for every little thing that we automate, getting using the remote management tools on essentially VxRail, the PowerEdge, we can use a lot of those tools that are built in. And then on top of that, the VxRail tools inside that to start automating that. So we're doing what we call zero touch engineering. And that's enabling as soon as we've got that piece of hardware in a rack and it's got power and a network cable to it, we are automating, standing that up from end to end and delivering it. So we have a goal right now to get from 7 days from the time that thing hits a dock on a data center until our platform teams are consuming it as capacity. So everything from getting it up, getting it configured, getting it part of a security domain if needed, getting it to the point where ESX is on it, updated, all of that's being automated today from that software-defined compute, software-defined storage, and software-defined networking perspective. And it's a journey. We're about probably 18 months into that journey, and we're really getting close to that 7-day to consume it from box on dock to it being just consumable capacity as a service from upstream teams. So it's some pretty cool stuff. I mean, to dive into that is another hour of conversation at least.
Sure.
But the tools are there. We're not building any tools. We're leveraging the tools that come with the product. And then we're doing this to enable our business to just consume stuff faster, and that's why we're building that self-service portal on top of it as well.
Yeah.
I always shake my head when I'm done talking, so everyone's like, it's my earnest look, I think.
Well, thanks, Joe. Any thoughts on that? Is that are you guys too far away from that, or does that sound like something that
I think it's something
you'd like to get to?
Well, that's something we're possibly going to be working on. We have lots of our VMware deployment already automated. So adding the PowerFlex part of that on top of that, makes perfect sense, and just something that needs to happen.
Yeah, and it's definitely a journey, and you just knock it off one thing at a time. Go after that low-hanging fruit, and this is for everybody, right? What's the thing that's causing you the most pain?
Yeah.
If it's a VM as a service, focus on that, right? And then once you start to get to that point where you're no longer having to spin up each VM one at a time, right-click clone from template, then really you want to start focusing on, hey, how can I automate this software-defined storage piece? And there are resources out there, right? There's just a ton of code and a ton of resources, especially within Dell and Dell support and sales teams to help with that. That's the only pitch I'm going to make, by the way, on this call. So
Cool. Very cool. Joe, it's been a pleasure having you on. You've got a chance to ask the audience or Suzanne anything, or if there's anything else you'd like to share, please feel free to do that. Folks, if you've got questions for Suzanne or Joe, please shoot those into the chat window. Did you guys notice anything on the polling results that kind of caught your eye, or maybe
I don't think I looked at the last one that came up. If you want to walk through those, David, that's totally up to you, or maybe people can chime in on the call. You guys can come off mute if you want and just ask questions. It's totally cool.
Well, they might not be able to do that
Oh,
because
well, then
of the
never
way
mind.
we
You can
set
put
this
something
up.
in the chat.
But we can use the chatty fingers.
Use your chatty
all right,
finger.
so for the integration and interoperability, looks like certainly public clouds, integrating with the public cloud, that's really no shock there. VMware VCF looks like number 2. I think that's, telling to the whole how you're automating all your VMware stuff, Joe, already. So being able to go even beyond that, VxRail integration, and then open source popped up quite a bit there. And, that kind of circles us back to the beginning when Joe said that you guys were looking at an open source solution. Open source is interesting, right? It's certainly not free, is it?
No, not always free. We're definitely, it is part of our framework for how we're delivering self-service. It is a component, and we do leverage it. So as well as using Dell technologies and VMware technologies, and kind of sister technologies of that, there is a broker piece in there, from an open source perspective. So I think it's really about figuring out where it makes sense and where you can easily support it, and how you can protect it on either end from any changes out there in the world, the bad guys, if you will.
Yeah, or the just kind of configuration creep, perhaps.
Configuration creep is real. Yeah, we all know that. So hey, Anne put in the chat, if you guys do want to come off mute, you can just use the raise the hand function in chat, and she will unmute you as our moderator and let you do that. So if I'm sure Joe is happy to answer any questions. He's in it day to day, doing from a design, build, and plan run perspective. And then if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those as well.
Let's see, fantastic. And if not, let's see here. Yep, looks like we can start to land the plane. Joe, thank you very much for spending your time. Thank your son for not hogging too much of the bandwidth. We appreciate that, and apologize for us if he, got some impact on
too much lag.
Survival Island.
So laggy
because of the lag. Exactly. And our best to your daughter and your cat and your wife. Happy summer.
Oh yes.
We're broadcasting from 3 different time zones today. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that's true.
East Coast, Central, and then West Coast. So folks, enjoy your summer. As always, please, these community hours are for you. If you've got questions, submit those. Reach out to member services at convergeusergroup.com with any ideas, or if you want to share your story. We're always looking for customer members to share their stories. And thanks for running the poll. And Suzanne, thank you for being my co-host. Joe, again, thank you for being the special guest. And I think you're out there. So I will say thank you very much all for attending, and have a great June and end of the school year. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, David. Thanks, Joe.
David.
Thanks, Ann.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
All
Thank
right,
you
Ann,
all.
you out there?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
great.
so much. Yeah, David, you were keeping me on my toes with all those polls today.
And
Thank you all for, go ahead, Suzanne.
I was gonna say, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, because I'm there's some amazing stuff that comes out there. It's where I get all my news. So at Converged
That's
Users.
right. No, thank you, Suzanne, for that plug. Yep, we're at Converged Users on Twitter. We also have a LinkedIn page if you prefer LinkedIn, so please check us out. Put a couple links in the chat. We have our survey. Would love to hear from you. And then also our next event is on July 15th. Big thank you to our sponsors, Dell Technologies and VMware. And we look forward to seeing you soon on the next community hour. And if you have any questions between now and then, feel free to reach out. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Bye.